Welcome to Tyra Mini Reads, Reviews, Discusses, Monologues about everything and anything, and that's on period. So, hi guys, welcome to my channel. Today, it's so exciting because I want to talk about one of my favorite authors of all time. So, not the author that got me into reading, but the author that rekindled my love for reading, right? So, in my intro video, I kind of explained that I started from like Harry Potter and Sidney Sheldon books. And then whenever I, moved to the States, I'd gone to school, I was like working, I guess. Then I discovered through a very good friend of mine, a very good friend of mine introduced me to his books, and I became a fan, or how do you say, I became a fan. So I've read every book he's published, and I am like a super fan. I'm like a very big fan. So today I'm just gonna do like the first. So he has a lot of books, and they're set in like this world. I'm gonna give you a brief synopsis. A lot of people should have heard this name before. He's super popular, but I'm gonna start on the entry that I love the most. So a lot of people have different ways you can start reading books in this world, but I'm just gonna go ahead and start with this one because this is my favorite books in the whole. Well, yeah, I think it's my favorite. So without any much talking and going around the point, today I'm going to be talking about Sanderson and the Cosmere. So the Cosmere is, think like a Marvel's kind of world where you have like different universes or different like continents in the same solar system. Sanderson created something called the Cosmere, where he then writes book about different continents, right? Different planets, actually, let me say planets. So different planets are set in this same solar system kind of world. And so that's why I said there are different ways to enter this, the Cosmere. You can start from, Mistborn series. You can start from the Way of Kings series, and Elantris, White Sand. I mean, there's a lot of ways. But I'm gonna be talking about my most favorite part of the Cosmere, my most favorite story, my best story ever. I mean, I've read these books back to back. Well, not back to back, but I've read them start to finish like 2 or 3 times. Yes, I have a problem. But I'm just gonna go ahead and start with The Way of Kings. So, The Way of Kings was first published August 31st, 2010. That's like 15 years. I hope my maths is right. What are we? 2025? Yeah, that's 15 years, okay? This book was published 15 years ago. I did not read it then. I read it like way long, maybe like 2020 or something. Not 2020, but you get the gist. Like, I read it pretty later. I'm going to give you a brief synopsis and then we can go into the books. I long for the days before the last desolation, the age before the heralds abandoned us and the night's radiance turned against us. A time when there was still magic in the world and honor in the hearts of men. The world became ours, and yet we lost it. Victory proved to be the greatest test of all. Or was that victory illusionary? Did our enemies come to recognize that the harder they fought, the fiercer our resistance? Fire and hammer will forge steel into a weapon, but if you abandon your sword, it eventually rusts away. There are 4 whom we watch. The first is the surgeon, forced to forsake healing to fight in the most brutal war of our time. The second is the assassin, a murderer who weeps as he kills. The third is the liar, a young woman who wears a scholar's mantle over the heart of a thief. And the last is the prince, a warlord whose eyes have opened to the ancient past as his thirst for battle wanes. Interesting. The world can change. Surge binding and shard wielding can return. The magic of ancient days will become ours again. These four people are key. One of them may redeem us, and one of them may destroy us. Speak again the ancient oaths: life before death, strength before weakness, journey before destination, and return to mend the shards they once bore. The knights radiant must stand again. Oh my god. So I am making these noises because I don't even think I ever read this. That's at the back of the book. So now that we are like at the halfway point of the series, I'm like, everything was there. Everything was there. So if you are a Brandon Sanderson fan, you know who the four people we're talking about. So I'm just gonna explain. So what we have here is the Way of Kings, right? Is set in this world where they dwell on Stormlight, right? They have this. That's how they power their continent. Is Stormlight, like lightning fuels their world. They store it in like little gemstones, and that's what they use to exchange to do light and stuff like that. But anyways, basically there was a war that had happened. Man, as man like we forgot whatever happened in that war, and then along this book, The Way of Kings, we find out that some people are finding out that they have magic, kind of, that has to do with the Stormlight, right? They're able to breathe it in, and they are able to do incredible things. And they find this out by accident. Some person finds out super young, and da 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 da. But we follow Kaladin. I think we could say book 1 is actually Kaladin. Book 2 is Shallan. Book 3 is Dalinar. Book 4. Oh, book 3 is probably Dalinar and maybe Yasnar. Book 4 is the Rhythm of War. I can't really say. But 5 is definitely Sets. Okay. So, like I said, there's Kaladin, which he's the Way of Kings. Like the primary point of view. And we have Words of Radiance, which is I think I would say Words of Radiance is maybe Adolin. I think we follow Adolin. Yes, we do. But Words of Radiance is like Shallan, Adolin, Oathbringer. They're big books though. Oathbringer is Dalinar's more point of view. Oathbringer. Rhythm of War is Shallan going into Shadesmere. And finally, we have Wind and Truth, which is Set's point of view, and I got the signed edition, and this came out December last year, so it's pretty recent. This is actually the best time to get into these books because, like I said, when Sanderson started writing, it was gonna be a 10 series book, 10 books in one. And so he's written 5: The Way of Kings, Words of Radiance, Oathbringer, Rhythm of War, and Wind and Truth. So, like I said, we follow Kaladin in this first book, where Kaladin, you quickly realize that he's a very good guy. Like, he's awesome. He has a good childhood, like his father is a surgeon, but then something happens in his hometown, and then he gets sent off to start fighting, like to war, right? So at first he's a peace-loving person, but then he's a surgeon, or learning to be a surgeon, like he's studying to be a surgeon like his dad. But then unfortunately he has to go to war, and so he's not going to be a surgeon anymore. Pretty much, that's literally the one that says the first is the surgeon, forced to forsake healing to fight in the most brutal war of our time, pretty much. So that's Kaladin. So he goes to fight in this war to save his brother, and that kind of sets off his point of view. You will quickly fall in love with Kaladin. Like he will be like you will die for Kaladin, right? So the way Sanderson writes the story, like you can see these are really chunky books. That like it's no exaggeration. This book is like 1,000, like almost 1,000 pages, right? So it's they're big, right? But there's so much backstory into this continent, and then obviously there's gods, like there are beings that the humans are quickly finding out that okay, something's going on, right? So there's like there's like stuff going on, and it's like different happening in different parts. So you have Kaladin who gets, starts fighting a war. You have Shallan is from a different country, and she is trying to save her family because her dad is dead and they have debts to pay. So she comes up with this plan to try to steal something from a very rich Yasna is like the daughter, the sister to the king or something like that. So that's Shallan, and so we follow her as she leaves her family, her brothers and their wives, and tries to become a mentee under Yasnar's wing. But really, her true goal is to steal something from Yasna that will help her family. And then we see Set. Set is like the assassin in white. From the very first chapter, you find out that someone is murdered, is killed, right? And we get each of these 5 books starts with a POV from the night of that murder, like when Gavilar is killed. Gavilar is the king of Roshar, not Roshar. I'm sorry. Is it Roshar? Guys, I'm Gavilar. No, not Roshar. Sorry. So Gavilar is the king of Roshar. Actually, no. It's been a minute. Sorry. I'm trying to look at the map. It doesn't help. But you get my point. Gavilar is the king, and he's murdered. And so the story picks up from there. Gavilar is murdered, and then we're trying to figure out who killed him and why. So because Gavilar is murdered, that kind of sets off a war, which his brother Dalinar leads, right? He rallies up the high priest and said, high lords, and it's like, we need to avenge our king. He was murdered by these people. There's this like group of people or group of beings, and they're like, well, they're the ones who killed our king. We need to go fight them. So they're engaged in this battle for like a, a good amount of time, like 30 years or 20 years. I might be exaggerating, but so that's also happening in a different setup. And under Dalinar has Adolin as his son and Renarin. Gavilar, that's the king that was killed, had a daughter called Yasnar, who's the one that Shallan is going to study under. So you see, it's kind of connected. And Kaladin is just by himself, and Set is the assassin who actually killed Gavilar, but they actually don't find out until later. So that's like the backdrop for the first book, is trying to figure out who killed Gavilar, trying to be political and keep the kingdom together, and then finding out that these 4 people have magic. Well, yeah, they've manifested powers, and that group is called the Knights Radiant. So the Knight Radiant have they have like, how do I say, hierarchies, where you have a Knight Radiant, you have a Squire, and then you have a different like power that comes based on the type of order of Knight Radiants that you are at. So I can't remember. I'm just gonna try and see if I have something here that will, because he always has like this postscript at the back. Um, that tells us, okay, so he doesn't have it here. I mean, this was the first thing. I want to read to you the different. Oh my God, look at this end paper. I obviously haven't looked at this book in a while. Um, okay, I want to talk about the different types of orders that we have. Okay, yeah, the 10 surges. So you have basically they're called surges, and so you have, like I said, it's a hierarchy kind of thing. So it starts from the heralds. From the heralds, you then have the Night Radiants, and then from the Night Radiants, you have the Squires, right? And there are different types of powers. Like you could get adhesion, gravitation, division, abrasion, progression, illumination, transformation, transportation, cohesion, and tension. So all of that just it manifests as like you're able to fly, you're able to be slick. Like when I say slick, like you can't, like you can literally slick, like you're like slippery. I was looking for that. So you're slippery and you can kind of like, get out of sticky situations. Like one person that we all know who has that power. So yeah. And then there's different types of night radiance. There's like the light weavers. There's Kaladin, who are the windrunners. You have so many others. There's like 10 of them. So Kaladin quickly finds out that he is a night radiant, and another thing is when you become a night radiant or when you start manifesting that power, it happens when you bond something called a spren. So a spren is like a little water, like a little spirit thing, like I don't know how to explain it, but you bond with the spren and that gives you the ability. So Kaladin bonds with Sil, and when and this the spread can actually turn into anything. Like they can turn into a sword, a spear, a weapon, a knife, whatever you want. You're bonded, you guys, and they can actually, you can talk to your spread. So we follow Kaladin and Sil, from books 1 to 5, where the whole group as a whole are finding out that there used to be a god called Honor, and Honor was the one who bestowed all these powers, well, some of it, right? And something happened, and they realized that their gods are dead. It's kind of hard to believe, but yeah, their gods are dead, and so there's this other god called Odium who is still active, and he still has a plan to destroy the world. So throughout these 5 books, we follow Dalinar, Kaladin, Shallan, Adalin, Set, as they all try to defeat Odium. Wind and Truth came out last year. It wasn't my favorite, right, book. A lot of people will know why. And I think it's because this book is like, think of it as literally book 5. It's not, the end. So, and this is like a 10-book series. So imagine if it's a trilogy. The book in the middle is always the like, it's not the best. I think second book syndrome happened to this book, even though it's number 5. But like I said, think of it like it's in the middle. Because, and I think it's also because Sanderson was trying to say a lot, but also trying not to say a lot. So, and you get it because there's 5 more books coming after this book. So obviously, I know he's not gonna like just spill the whole beans, but it wasn't my favorite book, and I think it's because we spent so much time with Set. And Set's story, don't get me wrong, was very touching. Like I didn't know I could feel things for Set, but here we are. yeah, Set, I was really happy how Set's life ended, or well, how it was resolved in the book. But there's just a lot that goes on. But the good thing is that we learn a lot about the world, about the war, about what happened between Honor and Odium that led to, the situation we find out we meet in the Way of Kings. Like technically, like the war is kind of broken because men did not have the spren. But by book five, we kind of we get the whole backstory of what happened, and it's actually a detailed, and that's probably another reason why I didn't like this book, is was we were learning the story from different angles, right? We learn it from Honor, we learn it as Dalinar was traveling through like the spirit realm. I mean, it's just a lot. But yeah, so by book five, a lot of stuff is resolved from the first books, but like I said, this is a 10-book series, so you're not gonna get all of the gists. We have to wait. When Brandon Sanderson released this book, Wind of Truth, last year, he releases something called State of Sanderson, I think, State of Sanderson, where it's like a newsletter, and the next books will be coming out in 7 years, like 2030 or something, 2030 or 2029 or something like that. No, like 2032, to be quite honest. That's when we're gonna get the next book. So if you've ever heard of the Way of the Stormlight Archive and you wanted to get into it, this is the best time because there's literally 7 years. I mean, when I say the best time, the books are big. It's not something you can like finish in one day. It's gonna take you a long time. So might as well just spread it out. I also wanted to explain that in between books two and three, we have Edge Dancer. So this is like a little novella that comes out, and you read it after the events of Words of Radiance, I think. Other people have different ways they read it, but that's just what I would do. And then after you finish, I think after you finish Rhythm of War, or before you read Rhythm of War, you then read Roshar. So he has two novellas that you can read. He also has Arcanon Unbounded, which is a collection of Cosmere stories from different worlds. So again, this might be a good starting point because you will get books from all of the worlds in the Cosmere. Remember, I explained that there are different worlds or systems. So I'm just gonna read it. You have the Shellish system, which has Elantris. That's a different book series, and he has two short stories for that. You have the Scadran system, which is Mistborn. I will do a different dedicated review on Mistborn. You have the Taldane system, which has White Sand, which is like a comic for now. You have the Trenodite system, which is Shadows for Silence in the Forest of Hell. Perfect. I love that story. And the Trenodite system is kind of connected to one of his other Kickstarter books that came out. So there's a lot of material, right? You have the Drominad system, which is Six of Dust, which we have Isles of the Ember Dark coming out this year of 2025, I think in November. So Six of Ducks is like a novella, so but it's a preview to how he's gonna go to the backstory of what's gonna happen in Isles of the Ember Dark. So that's something that's coming up. You have the Rosharian system, which is Edge Dancer. I think at the time when he published the Arcanum Unbounded, he hadn't written Dawn Shard. So you can start here because if you like novellas, there's a lot of stories from the different systems. You'll find out that the different systems, the different like planets or whatever, have different types of magic. Like White Sand has to do with magic about sand. Elantris has to do with like I forget that magic. Warbreaker has to do with like colors. So there's a lot of shadows in the Forest of Hell has to do with like something called shades. Six of Dust has to do with like birds, like aviary kind of magic. So then Stormlight Archive has to do with Stormlight, that kind of magic and the spren. So there's a lot. Like you have time. Like there's 7 years. You can start here because, like I said, there's Elantris. Elantris has 7 books. I'm sorry, not Elantris. Mistborn has 7 books and counting because he's also writing another set of books based on just the Mistborn series. And then we have these books, which they're 5, and you have like the little novellas, you have the Cosmere Unbound, the Arcanum Unbounded, and then you have Elantris, you have Warbreaker. So there's a lot of books that you can kind of start. I just wanted to, highlight the Stormlight Archive because that's my favorite series. I know it might seem intimidating because it's super big, but like I said, there's a lot of, I don't even know how to start explaining how fantastic the stories are. One thing I will say, and a lot of people who are Brandon Sanderson fans will say the same, is that this story, especially the Stormlight Archive, has brought a lot of people out of depression because we follow Kaladin, who you will come to find out that he's actually depressed. But in those days, like that kind of world, there was nothing, like no one knew what depression was. But Kaladin was actually a depressed person, and you see how he finds hope, and he finds family who loves him, and there's a lot of found family because he forms this group Reach 4, and he gets his strength from his bridge members. So and I have read these books, like I said, I've read them maybe 2-3 times, and every time I get to when Kaladin is saying his oaths, I cry. I'm not even gonna, I actually cry. It's just so good. Another thing is when they when you actually become a Knight Radiant, right? It's like a level. So if you watch One Piece, you can see the way Luffy is leveling up from gear 1 to 2 to 3. That's kind of like the same premise here. You start off at the first level, and you have to say an oath. You have to say some words, and you will. And funny enough, you actually would know what to say. No one tells you. You just kind of know, I guess, due to like the spren and that connection. And so every time you say the right words, you kind of level up, and you go up until I think the 4th ideal or the 5th ideal, which we kind of follow Kaladin throughout the books as he levels up, right? So it's kind of like a Luffy kind of thing where Kaladin is also leveling up, and in book 5 he levels up to like the most ultimate level up that he could ever level up. So yeah. So and funny enough, whenever I had read this book, a while back, I did write like a little thing where I was guessing who was gonna die and who was gonna be alive at the end of the series, and most of my predictions came true. I'll share it. I would have shared it, but I don't want to spoil it for people who are just trying to get into the series. But it's like I said, if you're going through something and you want to escape into a magical world, you will not be disappointed picking up these books. I will definitely read them again before book 6 comes out. I will read all of them again before book 6 comes out because it's so good. The whole of last year, I spent the whole of last year reading all of these books, just getting ready for book 5. So, yeah. So that's Stormlight Archive by Brandon Sanderson. You will quickly find out that Sand fans are everywhere. There's a lot of them. So welcome if you ever decide to pick him up. if you have read it. So yeah, let me know if you have read any of Brandon Sanderson books. I am going to be doing a part 2 video just right after. Because it's too long, I didn't want to put out a 1 hour video, but I will get into Mistborn and that part of the Cosmere in my next video. But yeah, let me know if you have read any of Brandon Sanderson books, if you've heard about it and you are interested in starting out. What would be a great entry point for you? I mean, this is for people who have read the books, right? I know I like chunky books. So for me, Stormlight Archive was a really good entry point for me, though I didn't start there. I started with Mistborn. So, but yeah, let me know if you like the books, if you've read them, and if maybe there's something you're hoping to read. Let me know if you want to discuss conspiracy theories for book 6 to 10. And yeah, thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a nice rest of your day. Bye.